afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night. I'm sure there was a famous TV show that did that. Um, Sean, you might be. I'm here with Sean Callagy, in case you hadn't all realised, because that's what was promoted and pushed, so you should know it. Sean, do you remember Midnight Caller with Jack Killian?
Wow. I don't think I do. That wouldn't have been sort of
You should,
a murder type movie, or
yeah,
no?
you should look it up. It was this daily. It was like a weekly sitcom, and it was
I don't
an
remember.
ex-policeman who'd become a radio show host, and he always got pulled back into being a policeman. And it was his audio bite that I loved. And I'm going to use this, you'll see, as a very clever segue to the next part of our conversation. His audio bite was, "Good night, America, wherever you are." And that line stuck with me. And with that, I'm going to get into Sean, the power of words. What does that mean to you when I say that?
So I want to. I don't think we reflexively react to words. So I say money, it conjures up images and perspectives for people. I say integrity, there's a meaning. And so I say people, there's a meaning. I say beach, ocean is a meaning. You know, it was very funny. I was in Mexico with Pat Melson, great person, met through the Tony Robbins Platinum community, he had a beautiful home there. And so it's on the beach. So on the beach means to me, Peter, everybody, you go in the ocean, you hang out, you body surf, you snorkel, like you're in the ocean on the beach. And so he had a beautiful group of guests and people in and out. It was just a wonderful time. Pat is so generous. And nobody was hanging out on the beach or going in the ocean. So words mean, and I was in shock. And Pat's like, "You go in the ocean all the time?" It's like, dude, so I think one of the great struggles we have in terms of our own approach to ourselves is the meaning, the unconscious, semi-conscious meaning of words to us. And here's an interesting part, right? And this opens up a Pandora's box of conversation, I think, is what happens from there when we realize that the unbelievable importance of context and how we communicate with ourselves, and context for how things go out to the world. And I have a ton to say about that, and my own experience of integrity, words, mindset, and context from our Hack Mankind video from last week. So, or talk from last week, I should say. So I'm very present to the meaning of words and how it stops people from taking out. Like I say the word cold call. You say one word reaction, Peter, cold call, and what one word reaction?
Opportunity.
Okay. I say cold call to most people in, Europe, US. What do you think they think? Cold call equals to 99% of the population.
Abject horror.
Right. I say compete, right? Or I'll say it without emphasis. I say the word compete. What does that word mean to you?
Bring it on.
Okay. I say the word compete. Let's say, do you think 25% of the population thinks compete means something aggressive, unkind, and or unfair?
Yeah, I think it's probably around there. I would say it's about there, yeah.
Yeah. So what I am very present to in this time, somebody came on the Unblinded Huddle this morning, Jacqueline Franchetti, love Jacqueline, it's amazing. So Jacqueline comes on this morning and goes, I'd like to talk about Zoom call fatigue or Zoom fatigue. And Fernando brought up an incredibly great point, which was, well, let's be careful of what we put into language, because all of a sudden it's a thing. So Zoom fatigue could all of a sudden become presumed for us. So in mindset and motivation for everyone, the jump off point for today is, how aware are you of reflexively what words mean to you, like rejection, failure, sell, market, influence, cold call, compete, people, meanness, kindness, love. All of those things mean something to Peter, to me, to you, and they're all at least slightly different to exponentially different. And so it impacts our external dramatically, but it also impacts our eternal and desire to take action. Peter, you're building something beautiful and wonderful here. My hallucination is that your sense of action, urgency, work ethic might be slightly different in meaning than some of the people that are even closest to you and you love very much. True or not true?
100%.
Yeah. I don't know. So what's present for you on this topic?
Well, there's a couple of interesting points you brought up, and I'm going to try and pick them apart in an order. And one of the things that I find amazing is and I think, Sean, you've been in lots of rooms, the same kind of rooms as I've been in, and one of the things they tell you consistently, and there are some things that are just absolute truths, and this is one of them, which is leave your ego at the door. If you walk in thinking you know everything, you're not going to hear anything. And if you don't hear anything, you're not going to learn anything. Do you agree, Sean? No matter how far up you are up the scale, no matter how much of an expert you are on a subject, there is always one thing you can pull away from time if the person you're listening to is good. And I was talking to someone the other day, and he's a sports psychologist, a sports scientist. And he said this sentence, we were just chatting away for a couple of hours, a great guy. And he said the sentence, you don't live your life in real time, right? And I went, I beg your pardon? And he went, well, the best athletes in the world will only respond to a starting gun about 180 milliseconds after the gun goes off. Most people, Peter, will only respond to that gun about 350 milliseconds after it's gone off. And in the sports world, and 97% of the population will only respond 3 seconds after, which is after they've gone, Christ, am I about to get shot? And then realize they haven't, and then they start running. He went, everything you hear when you put it under an MRI is at least 200 milliseconds delayed before your conscious brain gets to respond to the stimulus. So there's a 200 millisecond gap where you're working on autopilot. And I was like, wow, okay. So what do I do about that? And he said, it's all about the work in advance, right? Conditioned behaviors such as if someone walks out in front of my car, I put my brake on, are good conditioned behaviors. But conditioned behaviors such as when I hear the word cold call, I feel fear, that's a bad conditioned behavior. And he said, we all apply these lenses, we all apply these filters. It's impossible not to do it because your amygdala is responsible for doing that. It's its job. Its job is to go, am I safe? Yes, no. Okay, carry on. And I thought that was one of the most profound things I've ever heard. Your life is not real time. When you see something, it happened 200 milliseconds ago. It's like, what? No, my life is real time.
That is extraordinary.
So yeah, so that was the first thing. And then the second thing that you asked, which I guess I'm going to try not to get too much on a soapbox, is you said about the work ethic of myself as people around me, the urgency. And my problem is that armed protesters staged enter the Michigan State House yesterday. That is the beginning of what I've been saying is going to happen. That we will start transferring, because it's inevitable. If people live in fear, then it is inevitable that at the fringes of society, fear becomes civil unrest.
Yeah.
It's inevitable that I was speaking to an economist, kind of one of the top 10 names that everybody will know, who asked me not to share his name, but he was happy for me to share his opinion. He said, we know at least one major American airline is going to go out of business. The only question is which one. And I said, does that not apply in Europe? And he went, no, most of the European airlines are flag carriers. Most of them belong to the government in some way. so that you can support them in a very different way. And I said, what about EasyJet and Ryanair? And he went, there's real trouble here. Shell, for anyone in the space of shareholding and stocks, you know, one of the adages you're taught at, I'm going to use silly words, finance school, is never sell Shell, because Shell issues a dividend every year, and Shell it's responsible, I think, for something along the lines of 40% of all dividend payments in the FTSE 100 in the UK. Shell, for the first time this year, did not issue a dividend. That's $16 billion that hasn't gone into the economy. I don't know the exact number, but it was certainly a B, not an M number.
Yeah.
And that's where my urgency is coming from, Sean. It's coming from a position of people like myself, people like you, people like Pete Vargas with the Rise Up Challenge. I personally, and this is a hallucination, I feel a responsibility to step up right now and say, I don't have all the answers, and I'm not right for everybody, but there is a certain set of people that I know I can help. Yes. So if I'm reaching 10 people, it's not enough. If I'm reaching 100 people, it's not enough. If I'm reaching 1,000 people, it's not enough. Step up. Which we mentioned the beautiful positive Jess that we were both colleagues of ours in different ways. And I was speaking to her last night. She's like, how does that pressure sit on your shoulders? And I'm like, not well, actually. She's like, are you enjoying this? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm really not, because I want to get to the next level, the next level, the next level, because if it becomes a tenth as bad as I think it possibly could be, then the world needs Sean Callagy. It needs Pete Vargas. It needs these people to lead places of hope and light and goodness to help people shape their mindset into the right place. I've talked for too long because I want you to be talking, not me, but
no, I love it.
I was present. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, awesome. So that is an incredible dovetail into this dangling issue. So about language and context. So last Friday, I said a bunch related to Grant Cardone and what his action steps were. I also said that I would, kick his bleep A, right, and influence off on his actions. And I also said, in a longer context, I refer to his work in a derogatory way, right?
Yep.
All of which I meant and stand fully behind, okay? Not all of his work, but some of it in context, okay? The work that I applaud him for is simply how difficult it is to build a mass following at anything, right? And many people have built mass followings that haven't done it, though, some have done it completely out of integrity. Some have done it partially out of integrity. Some have done it mostly out of integrity. Like, there's a continuum on a scale. So what came up for me, because you did a beautiful job, and I want to do this, right? But what came up for me in the context of everything that you just mentioned about Pete Vargas and Rise Up and Hack Mankind and We're Dealing with Unblinded and all the other, wonderful people out there doing great work, is the absence of context and meaning. So there's so many people in the world that have no idea who I am. And for me, because words have such a reflexive reaction, it is fun and kind. It could be totally appropriate in a full listened to context to say exactly what I said. And I meant all of it. If it gets edited out as the story gets told, and some people are running around saying, hey, some guy, Sean Callagy, said your work is blank, right? And that's what the entire thing is distilled down to, right? That wouldn't accurately represent what I'm saying, but it wouldn't be inaccurate if you watched a moment of a video clip. So what became present for me is like 17 things. One is the incredible problem of understanding each other. Because I want to bet Grant Cardone $250,000 and go influence off because I unquestionably believe our stuff is better than his. Like I unquestionably, right? And I want to have that, and I want to do that now. What becomes interesting when we make the provocative side of the challenge in the longer emotionalized context, I do believe that comparatively, our work is X and his work is Y, right? I believe that in the space of training salespeople to go out and sell, especially with integrity, and especially to something other than trying to sell a leveraged, overpowered sale of a product or item like a car or a pen. I think the context of his work and influence does not at all like you start trying to sell other people like that, and I think that's why he's had big challenges, from my understanding, with selling larger, more institutionalized situations that fall outside of the overpower energy of like press sale. And I think it's out of integrity. I think the model is out of integrity. And his language is wildly out of integrity because it talks about close, hook. It's you versus them to make them do what you want them to do. Fundamentally, I think that is wrong. So watch, Peter.
One of Grant's soundbites is, you're either the winner or the loser, and I know which one I effing want to be. And yeah. I know you and I don't agree with that. It's like, no, why can't both people walk away as winners?
Yeah, not at all. So I guess, so yes, on the global scale, from a different angle, what I'm concerned about is how that challenge message reaches him and how I'm perceived inaccurately in that process. Because I love competition. I love fun energy. I love saying it like you see it. But in a societal context, if we're at a table and everybody knows each other, and or you listen to a 1-hour interview and something is said in the middle, it's understood in context. To watch a soundbite, let's say there's 100,000 people watch it that and 99,000 don't know who I am. And it's a person going, his work is blank, right? It's like, wow, that guy Sean is a jerk, which would fundamentally, I don't think I'm a jerk. I think I'm aggressive. I think I'm competitive. I think I could be provocative. I could say it like it is. I'm speaking. So the issue I'm speaking to is the larger challenge of our society. And then we'll talk about what we do related to Grant Cardone. And I'm fully open. As a society, we watch the news and everything's out of context. And I don't think I ever thought about it until this Grant Cardone situation of like how we approach that challenge. Right. And that messaging out there. So I'm ready to say, like, let's go, dude. Like, let's step in the arena. Let's go. You're an alpha. You claim to be. I'm going to defeat you. I'm going to in hierarchical primacy, I'm going to demonstrate to you the power of integrity-based human influence. And I'm going to crush your work, your model. Different than your work is blank. And that soundbite, I'm like, let's go. Right. So, yeah, please, whatever's for you.
First of all, I want to tell people right now, if you've got a friend that is in business, in marketing, in sales, share this with them right now, because you are literally watching what's about to unfold is essentially what would normally be a private conversation being a public conversation between two people, respectfully, arrogantly on my side and respectfully to Sean, that are top of their game. Right? You're about to listen to what I think is going to be a fantastic debate. So, Sean, the first two things I'd say is, and this is just a point of acknowledgement, and then we'll move on.
Yeah.
This is how important I feel integrity is. Because I could have taken that soundbite a week ago today and propelled Hack Mankind up to 20-fold what it is right now.
Yeah, no, I know.
And I gave you 3 opportunities over the weekend to say, you know what, actually, it was in the heat of the moment. And instead of releasing it, I've been pushing for you to release it because I know that I brought you on that interview to a place that you don't normally sit. And I wanted you to be comfortable with it. So, and I'm not using this as a bravo, Pete, you're amazing. I'm using it as to tell my followers who've gone, why haven't you released this yet? Because I've said to you all, and I still stand by it, how can I be somebody that says, Sean, how important is integrity to you? and then operate in a way that I would find to be out of integrity, which is taking that soundbite, taking Sean to a moment of passion in an interview, releasing his inner use, cutting it into something that is something not representative of the hour, and then pushing it out. I guarantee what would have happened if I'd done that, apart from anything else, is Sean would have gone, Pete, seriously? Is that what this is? That would have not been cool.
Yeah.
So integrity means, Muhammad Ali, sorry, yeah, I'm going to take 4 years off my career, right in the middle, because I'm going to stick to what I mean. And for me, on this one, it meant integrity. But here's the fascinating part of the conversation, Sean. My frustration over the last couple of weeks is the messaging of Hack Mankind has not worked. It has not cut through, because we talk about hope and clarity and choices and optimism and resilience. And you've got to get that message out there. You have to get that message through. So the question is, when does the means get justified by the end? So I took what you've said. Now I've worked with like professional video editors, where they take one sentence and put it at the front and another sentence and put it at the back, and they can take literally, you talk for an hour, they can make you say anything they want to say.
Yeah.
But everything was in order. There was nothing misconstrued. We didn't edit any parts out. We beeped out the swearing out of respect for everybody. So it wasn't an untrue representation, but it was out of its context. I think that's a really important thing. Yeah. But if you don't do that, you don't get through to get to cut through. And then we don't get to take people that are listening to Grant Cardone and say, there's another way, right?
Yeah. So listen, I'm all good. I stand behind what I say, unless I say, listen, I didn't mean that. I meant everything I said in that entire interview. Not one word would I take back. I think the only word, I don't care about I'll kick his F&A, right? All good. What I would like to recontextualize, because I think it lands out of context to say.
My guess first?
Yeah.
I'm going to guess his stuff is garbage.
Yes.
Because it was a generalization, which if you were to look through all of his things, you would go, actually, that has validity, that has validity, this doesn't. That's the sentence I actually thought you'd react to more than the effing A bit.
Yeah, because I think what I was saying was, when I said his stuff is garbage, I was referring to the context of the marketing, integrity, lack of integrity marketing, and, again, standing behind it, quite frankly, I was referring to his sales training methodology, with high pressure, high closing, out of integrity in comparison to ours. But the read of his stuff is garbage could easily be interpreted to mean, if it's just the only part that's seen, is out of context. So how about this? And so I don't know what integrity is or not, and it gets confusing when it gets into these much more microscopics. The sentence that I feel is accurate would be that I think Grant Cardone has obviously done many remarkable things. I think he has not used his influence for good in the responsible ways he should. And that in terms of his sales training methodology and all these different ways to close people and psychologically pressure them, I believe that is garbage. I believe that integrity-based influencing isn't making people do things. It isn't pressuring them to. It isn't forcing them to. It isn't blinding them to reality. And you could, Peter, I leave this up to your integrity. You could do what you want from this point, edit in, out, remove the word garbage or not. But me saying, let's go, brother, I'll kick your effing A, that I stand behind all day long. That is how I talk. I just want to make sure that it wouldn't come off. One, that it wouldn't come off that I was calling all of his work garbage. And second, I guess the concern, if somebody doesn't know me and thinking I would be referring to somebody's work as garbage to just edify myself out of ego, that's not what I'm doing. I'm saying comparatively it's garbage, and don't teach people to pressure people, close and sell. And I am saying, yeah, let's go, brother. If you beat me, you beat me. Let's go as gladiators of training into the ring as football players, baseball players, tennis players. Let's have a rap off, a single, like let's do the thing to demonstrate whose work resonates more and gets to yes with integrity more effectively when it's with integrity. You want to force somebody to buy something, swampland, and how about this? You want to force somebody to buy swampland in like the middle of Florida? Use those techniques where like the swampland's no good. I mean, Disney bought swampland. So you want to force somebody to buy something valueless that you know is valueless and pressure somebody to do something? Yeah, then buy his stuff. You want to unblind people with integrity to move forward and take action in the appropriate way? Then buy our stuff. Because all I hear in those closing techniques and the other things I've read, a bunch of his stuff, is how do you make people do things that you want them to do? And I don't hear a lot of context about whether or not it's good for them. And that, to me, making people do things that you think solely about yourself, that's garbage, and why people can't stand and hate salespeople. I don't hate anybody, but that's why people say they hate salespeople. And that, to me, is a gross out of integrity. And yeah, my $250,000 is waiting. Let's go, brother. And how you would like to, in fairness and your integrity, which I trust, Peter, to put that all together and issue it, like, let's rock and roll. Is is that, I just want to contextualize that. Yeah.
It helps a lot. And as I said, I knew when I was working with the editors to put the video together, I knew the sentence that you'd go, I don't like that. And literally on Friday, I had probably about 20 people reaching out to me, let's get it out, let's get it out, let's get it out. I'm like, no, you don't do that. You don't hold someone's feet to the fire for $250,000 when they say a sentence in passion. You give them the opportunity to say, I just want to check that you're good with this, right? Whether it's you've got, no, it's just, I just think it's so important. But
and even, can I say this, Peter? Yeah. I don't withdraw anything I said.
No, absolutely.
But that sentence, without the larger context and a little bit more specificity, like his stuff is garbage, like you said, could be interpreted many different ways. And so without clarification, it could sound like I'm saying like his entire life stands for garbage, which I'm not. Listen, he's an inspiration on how Zeus Energy, he's a model of following how Zeus Energy can create a following.
So he's also a model on work ethic as well. I mean, his
model on work ethic, for sure.
There is a bunch that he does that I absolutely agree with, which is why, I haven't spoken to Chris Crone since this has happened, but it's why, I think people like Chris, people like you, people like me were so disgusted and appalled, because you can't help but look up to somebody like Grant Cardone before this happens. You're like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be in the hero list. You're not supposed to be in the villain list. You were in my hero list, and now I have to question that. And you feel betrayed almost by that kind of thing. You're like, come on, man.
But me being in my own integrity, to make sure it's clear, he definitely was, even before this, was not a hero of mine. Like, I model people. So modeling Zeus Energy, yes. Modeling, telling people you're great because you're so focusing on the plane and the Rolex. Like, if he would explain it appropriately and say, listen, I'm super grateful I have an airplane. It's a really effective part of my business. I couldn't have done it without putting my processes together. Amen, brother. Like, I'm so proud that a human being, if it's with integrity, can create a level of abundance where they have an airplane. It's fantastic. I want.
I can't remember the last time I heard someone slate Oprah.
Yeah, like, I want everybody to have what they want, but whatever he would do charitably, I honor that with the abundance. The challenge I had going in, the challenge I have with a lot of sales training, is that it's this simple for me, Peter, right? And I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's this simple. If you heard me walk away today, let's say that you and I are talking about doing some different things together, right?
Yep.
And let's say there's things that I felt that after today, I got you to say yes to. And the phone, this computer line was still open. And I walked over to Mona and I said, hey, Mona, yeah, I just closed Peter, right? How, just literally, reflexively, well, you're a really interesting person as depth of, so I'm curious, how would you feel about that?
I would be in twofold. First of all, I would go fair play. I don't mind being played, right? As long as it's with integrity and the opponent's worthy. But at the same time, it would diminish my view of you, and it would make me feel that you are now more of an opponent than a friend.
Yeah. Listen, Peter, amen. And that's why when you listen to his work and it speaks in terms of that type of language, like the closing of people, fundamentally, like I don't think I've ever said I've closed somebody. And one of my initial forays into integrity-based human influence, starting 23 years ago, was when I was reading sales training books, and I'm like, close people? Like hook them? Like what? You know, interest them, disrupt them. You go, oh, semantics. I don't think semantics. You know, just like it's not semantics if somebody went to Grant Cardone and said, hey, this guy said your work is garbage, versus he's saying this work of yours is garbage, right? Like I do say that. This section, the section I'm referring to of his work, I do believe is garbage. It's harmful. It's teaching people to not like themselves in the sales process. Because if you wouldn't want it said about your mother, right? Why would you want it said about you? And then just this, like you said, somebody wins and somebody loses, and nobody wins and loses. Where sales and influence is about unblinding to truth. It's about unblinding to the truth of we should work together. You should buy my product or not buy my product or service. And if you're in the space of having to win and force people to do something with you, they get a real problem on your hands. And I think you're in the wrong business. And that's why I think it's so fundamentally wrong. Fundamentally. And I did not look up to him and aspire to him, because so much of his energy to me, I love competition. I love Muhammad. I love, like, let's go. I love strong leadership. I play baseball, football. I love Zeus energy as a leadership technique, balanced in love and truth. But when it falls into a space of like us versus them, me versus you, even the top jury verdicts that I had, in all of those cases, Peter, I had so many times in the continuum, I said to the other side, please don't do this to yourself. Like you're going to end up in prison. You're going to end up with a huge verdict against you. Just do the right thing in integrity. And I said it all the way, wrote it, said it. It was never like, okay, now you're my opponent. It's like when I was in 6th grade, this is a true story, a factual story, an accurate story, a real story, I should say, a real story. There was a kid on the playground. I was new to town. I moved, towns in northern New Jersey, and everybody was like, "Hey, fight this kid." And Peter felt pressed to do it. I could see it was like taunting, and he actually threw a punch and punched me in the face. And I was a pretty tough kid, and I didn't punch him back. I put him in a headlock, took him down to the ground. I said, "Stop." I said, "Stop, stop." Like that's integrity. If you don't have to defend yourself, if you don't have to force somebody to do something for your own safety or protection, right? Then you don't force people to do anything. And I don't think there's any other way to interpret his work, but I interpret his work very clearly as being very connected and comfortable with the idea of there's a winner and a loser of forcing somebody to do something. And I think that's just outrageous and wrong. So thanks for listening.
But here's my problem with everything we're saying. And in a micro you versus Grant, in a debate, I do believe you'd win, and I hope you do.
Yeah.
My problem where I become disenfranchised with, let's say society, is up until November 2018, my job was helping people not be in integrity. That's what I did. I designed digital products to manipulate behavior. That was what I was, and I was really, really good at it. And the power you have when you're not in integrity, when you've got the whole tool chest available to you, is insane. I was talking about this on a call the other day, and someone said, "Pete, what do you mean Coke want me to be scared?" I'm like, Coke want you to be scared. They don't want you to be happy. They want you to be scared. And I'm not saying Coke, I need to just correct myself. Let's just say major consumer brands for a second. I apologize to Coke.
Okay.
But from a marketing and advertising perspective, you want somebody to be scared, because if they're scared, they're off kilter. And if they're off kilter, you can implant your message into them in a way that they then thought it was their own idea. And that's terrifying to me. That if you operate out of integrity, I think you actually end up winning, which is why I think our society looks like it does now. Where we're, not all of us, where the majority of people on a hamster wheel of debt, of lending, of borrowing, of I need the next promotion, I'm going to not spend time with my kids so I can spend 14 hours at work so I can get a 3.2% rise at the end of the year and look back at my life in 70 years and go, holy crap, what happened? Not because I'm saying there's a conspiracy. I don't think there's some, Illuminati sitting at the top of the chain pulling all the things. But the system that we live in, untethered capitalism, rewards, sadly, for me, people that operate out of integrity.
So can I share this?
Please.
I believe that's true. And in what could sound as a self-serving statement, but I promise it isn't. I believe unless you find yourself standing against integrity-based human influence. And I believe that integrity-based human influence defeats everything you're talking about every time. And if I could drop in this, maybe this is an entire episode at a later date, okay? In the federal trial in Arizona that resulted in the $27 million jury verdict you hear me talking about, it was everything we're talking about right now. The other attorney believed, I'm very clear, in lying, cheating, manipulating, everything imaginable. It was all fair play. And there's rules in the legal system against that, but we're so conditioned to accept it. It was like fully present throughout. And he even had, in the beginning of the case, everybody in alignment with the defendant, the adversary to my client, who was called by a neutral party in the case, court-related, this receiver, court-appointed receiver type character, management consultant. He was called, the other guy, we'll call him Mr. X. Mr. X was called a cult-like leader. So Mr. X, when the case, before I was even involved in it, when everything first started all the way back in 2011, when that all first began, like 40 people, dozens of people that worked, it wasn't less than 20, could have been 40, I forget the exact number, that worked for the company, filed all these sworn statements with the court designed to like galvanize force energy against my client and drive him out in a way. And everybody said, it's he said, she said, all the people are lining up with the other guy. Like, and I even was like wondering in my own head, like, yeah, why is this all going on this way? And what I slowly unpacked over time and found all the markers and all the things in this incredibly complex web was the truth. They were trying, there was medical billing fraud going on, and my client figured it out. They tried to drive him out of the company, right? And take it for pennies in the dollar and destroy his life. Now, the problem became, Peter and everybody, how do you unblind witnesses to it who are scared to testify? How do you deal with the fact that the inspector general of the state of Arizona is going to take the witness stand and say, yeah, there was no problems and everything was right, and he's completely wrong and didn't do his job, but he's the highest ranking law enforcement officer in Arizona? Like, how do you deal with that? And the answer for all of it is integrity-based human influence. And this is why I say influence is a superpower. And this is why I say that through its acquisition, we make the world a greater place. Because if not, then I think you're absolutely right, Peter, that darkness wins. And darkness wins against light because light is unskilled. Darkness wins against light because light is unskilled. And light forgets that you need a lightning bolt sometimes in the darkness. And as soon as the lightning bolt comes in, it all lights up and light wins.
You just reminded me of, thank you for that. You've just reminded me of a very interesting story. And it was actually, I think it was the first time I met our mutual friend Jess. So I ran into this lady who has dedicated her life to trying to get female sanitary products to Africa and India. And when I heard about this, I was like, yeah, okay, what? This is just yet another one of these charities. And then she explained the impact of it. And I was like, wow, I've been hideously naive. When you go through it, it's like, actually, this is a really big deal. And she said, yeah, it's amazing. I've just been given a check from insert blank here, think Fortune 50 type company for $10,000. I'm like, $10,000? And she went, yeah. And I went, send it back. And she went, sorry? I said, that's an insult. That's like me giving you 3 cents right now. No. You'll get more publicity by ripping that check into pieces, taking a photocopy of it, sending it with an open letter to the Washington Times, New York Post saying, this is how much this company cares about this issue. And so, yeah, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. And it's landed with me for a long time, because when I run into the majority of people, let's just do very broad brushstrokes, and this is not true, but there are good people and bad people, right? That's not true. We're all on a gradient. But Sean, I would say that I think of you as one of the good guys, right? But most of it's just truth. But most of the good people I meet are, as you said, they are unskilled. They have a pure heart, but when it comes to process mastery, execution, however we want to badge that, you're like, what are you doing? You can't play in this little small space. If you're going to go up against people, you've got to step up, because you got to. They are incredibly talented. Like the bad people, in quotes, are incredibly skilled at what they do. So
Can I
stand against it? You've got to have that skill.
The way I would say my language, I would say people that are in pain and engaged in cries for help. Like, right, they're in pain, engaged in cries for help, and therefore they're engaged in negative vibrational activity. Yes, that's how I like, because I'm careful. I'm not shaping your language. I'm sharing mine. I look at it that way. I think everything people will engage in, myself included, like I've engaged in cries for help for sure, right? But it's the behavioral assessment. Is this an active love or cry for help? And so going back to this model and concept, it's when people are engaging cries for help, like lying, defrauding, forcing, pressing, assaulting women, kidnapping women, stealing from banks, taking things that don't belong to you, like all of those behaviors, they're really cries for help that have to be stopped. We need skill to stop them. But please, sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, I think that's a much. One of the reasons I love talking to you, Sean, is because of your career as both a lawyer and with all the work you've done on stage, your ability to craft your words in a more concise, impactful way than me it's one of those, we talk about where am I on the out of 10. I'm like, I look at you and I'm like, I'm a 2. Right? Like authenticity, 100%. Conciseness, not so much just yet.
Well, I think so. Here's what I learned from you and why I enjoyed talking to you so much, Peter. First of all, that was a very kind thing. I don't think at all that we have that kind of differential. I think you're incredibly articulate, appropriate with your wording, and the depth of your thinking is provocative, inspiring, genius, creative. So I love this time. Hopefully it's serving people. I think there's a lot of value in what we're chatting about, but independently, I really enjoy it to sit and think at a really, really high level, trying to keep up with your thoughts, which are truly brilliant.
Well, thank you very much for that. But I think we both have the same thing. And you said it earlier on when you were talking about the trial verdict. I think I get stuck on the word why. Right? If I don't understand something, I just get stuck on the word why. And I use the most stupid example. So in the UK, we have speed cameras that capture a car from the rear. And every so often you run into these roads where they have the white markers on both sides of the road. And I was like, why would you have the white markers on the other side of the road? Because that would capture people from the front. And they're not allowed to do that by law because you can't blind them. And it literally took me years to work out that it's because people were just pulling onto the other side of the road when they went through the speed camera, so they weren't on the white lines. It's like, okay, I get it now. But the whys to me are so fascinating. Why did Britain put street lights on the motorways? Because France built nuclear reactors, so they stopped buying our surplus electricity, so we had to get rid of it somehow. Right? That's the actual why. And that's one thing I push and promote to everyone. If you want to engage with the world in a better way, and I'm kind of advocating a little bit of self-torture to you now, I guess, but sit and go, why? Right? And I'll give you the perfect example. Sean and I had that time last Friday, and Sean, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but we're going to release it on Wednesday, and then we're going to release it on Thursday. And the only thought that's been in my head, and again today, my only thought is why? Why isn't he pushing this out? I am missing something. What am I not seeing? So I watched back through that video. So when you said earlier, there's one piece I don't like, I was able to say, it's that, isn't it, Sean?
Yeah. And share. And the why wasn't because I don't think his work is garbage in the space of selling and pressuring people in comparison to our integrity-based selling. It is. Like, I stand behind that. That is my belief. Yeah. Garbage for serving people, the world, what you're teaching people in the space of you win, somebody wins and somebody loses. Like that is, I watched Glenn Ross and Alec Baldwin say that as an example of like a horrifying scenario that I'm looking at. And so my only concern was, and this is the integrity piece, is that I would be perceived as saying something I wasn't saying. So I am saying everything I just said, like, let's go. Yeah, I throw it down. I talk like, I think I kick your A, 250, let's go. Neutral audience, debate both topics, all good. And yeah, I think that I would hope that nobody buys his sales training ever again in the world. I stand behind that because I think it's not rooted in integrity. It's rooted in somebody wins, somebody loses, forcing people to do things, which is the audience base you're teaching. That's just a horrendous thing to be teaching people. And teaching people to be out of integrity and force people to do things is garbage. I agree. Like, so,
yeah. Just because we're in this space of clarification, do you hope that no one buys anything that he sells again? Or do you hope that he hears the message and refines his product and service in such a way that he does recognize integrity?
Okay, so two things. So one, I wouldn't say that I hope nobody buys anything from him ever again, because I haven't read all of his work, right? Yep. So I don't know, right? But anything that is rooted in forcing people, closing people, overpowering people, rooted in the manipulation of people, rooted in making people do something they don't actually need, right? And not allowing them to, not attempting to have them see truth, attempting them to be defeated, right? Like you said, you know, the quote of somebody wins, somebody loses, like to defeat them and make them do it, like fundamentally horrific. Listen, we could talk about all kinds of things. I went to college, and the idea, I've never, that I can recall in my life, ever had a woman walk away and go, hey, Peter, she's pretty hot. I didn't say it when I was 17, right? And I'll put myself on a pedestal. I'm saying the objectification of others. Like, they're there to be beaten. You're going to kick his A. Yeah, I'm going to kick his A because, like, we're competing in a space, right? I don't want to eliminate him from the planet. I don't want to take control of him, right? I want to say, like, yeah, this product is better than this product. The service is better than this service. That's it, right? When so many
I think I can just get a really easy clarification. Yeah. It's the difference between two kids fighting on the street and a boxing match. The boxing match is fine. Two people have stepped in, two people know the risks, two people have trained, let's go. Two kids on the street, no, and no. don't do that. Violence isn't cool. Those two things can exist next to each other.
Yeah. And how about if I could say this? I think the root of some of that messaging could be interpreted. I'm not saying he's saying this, but it could be interpreted by some of winning and losing, of how men or women would manipulate each other into relationships, that people would be taking from other people, taking them under false pretenses, that young men could think that the height of success is to be, creating conquest over women, or women could be thinking conquest over men. Like, I just think this is so the wrong road. I can't even tell you. And I think that these are very connected, and how it would be easy to interpret messaging that way.
Beautiful. Right, Sean, we're about to get cut off because somebody else is going to jump on this line. So final thoughts to you, and then I'll just wrap up.
Yeah, listen, let's go ding, ding. Let's make it happen for the sake of integrity. And we got to have all kinds of fun, all kind of hype. I respect anybody that's achieved, as long as it's in the right messaging, right vibration. I believe in financial abundance at the highest level, and time freedom as well, and of course magic, but when it's in integrity. And when you talk about closing people, would you want your mother to be closed? I don't think so. And would you want to think that every encounter you have with another person, somebody wins and somebody loses, as opposed to trying to reach fairness and value for both? I think fairness and value for both every day, twice on Sunday, and it's skill defeats darkness every day. Thanks.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you so much to everybody that stuck with us. As I echo, Sean, I hope you saw value in this. There's most of the things that you sit and watch on replay, I think you watch them like passively in the background. This one I genuinely hope you actually listen to, because I think it's very rare you get to see two people have a legitimate debate and conversation and discourse around something that is kind of personal and private to them, but needs to be public. So I think this has been amazing, as per usual. Sean, it's literally the highlight of my week, so thank you. I ask everybody to do two things from this. One is go to www.hackmankind.com, put your email address and sign in, because our first 1,000 members are free for life. And when I do release this video that Sean and I have been discussing, we're going to go through that 1,000 members so quickly that it's done, right? So literally within half an hour of me releasing this, that is your last chance to not do it in that way. That's the first thing. Second thing is unblindedsaleshuddle.com, I believe, John?
Yes. Yeah.
He would say it's the first best way to start your day, but on the basis that I'm 30 minutes before, I would say it's a tied first. But unblindedsaleshuddle.com, tune into Sean, Adam, Jared, Fernando. Honestly, of all of the things I've joined, this is the one thing that I still keep coming back to, and that should hopefully tell you something if you have any respect for me. Sean, thank you again, and I will see you next week.
And let's get this thing on. We'll do it the right way, and let's get it on. Thanks.
I'm on it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Bye-bye.